And welcome back. And with us now, the founder of Save a Life Foundation, Carol Spizzirri, along with State Representative Dan Burke. And he has introduced legislation, as I said, to expand the scope of the Save a Life for Kids program. How is that going to work?
As far as the legislation?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're hoping that I would like to have this representative elaborate on the scope of how it's going to work, but we are wanting to target EMS as the focus. 80% of paramedics and EMS in this country are volunteers, and they have full-time jobs, and the days off they volunteer their time to save other people's lives. So we have to generate some funds to make their job more visible to the general public, and who they are, be paramedic, and also have the general public realize their role as is very important to maintain life until the paramedics arrive. And I think that Representative Burke would be more able to discuss the legislation part of it.
Please do.
Well, as Carol approached me several weeks ago and discussed the subject of the Save a Life Foundation and its importance in our society in view of our now knowing that we can indeed intervene and save a life. Even a child has the opportunity, as you heard from the professional firefighters earlier and the medical technicians, that we can indeed intervene and save a life. This legislation would call for the training of school-age children, ages kindergarten through 8th grade, in every grade school in the state of Illinois. This week, Carol came to Springfield and testified before the Committee on Elementary and Secondary Education, asking the state legislature to view this issue importantly and furthermore fund it. There are always costs involved in providing materials to schools and so forth. A surcharge be placed on rental vehicles in the state of Illinois. Not a very imposing tax, because we understand that those that visit our state are those that for the most part rent vehicles. So there is a minor concern in terms of raising a tax, but we think it's important to go after it and persuade our state legislators to pass this and say to the state of Illinois and to their constituency that there is the opportunity to save a life, and we should begin early. We should begin to tell school-age children that they have the opportunity to intervene and, in fact, save a life.
How much of a surcharge are we talking about?
We're talking about $1 on every rental. It's a one-time fee.
Carol, I think for our viewers who aren't familiar with the foundation and the reason behind it, tell us again why you became involved in this effort.
My daughter just turned 18, and on Labor Day of 1992, her car was struck by another on the highway, and the accident involved severing her arm. At the scene, the first to arrive were police officers, and they were not trained in life-saving skills. Thus, Christina bled to death before the paramedics arrived. Immediately after, within a couple of months, I was appalled by this, that police officers, school teachers, coaches, which then I found out were not trained in life-saving skills. I went to Springfield and asked a state representative down in Effingham, Illinois, Chuck Hartke, if he would sponsor legislation mandating police officers and firefighters to be trained in CPR and first aid. And it did pass. The same time I went to Washington and asked, because it was a mandate to require funds, to appropriate funds for that education, and now Senator Durbin opened his door and sponsored that legislation. Both went into existence in January 1995. Since then, I've been embraced by the EMS industry or community, because at the time Chrissy died, the paramedics that attended her funeral had said, we need help. We can't do our job correctly unless somebody, that first responder, that bystander, maintains life until we get there. So that kind of just grew into a working relationship. EMS, I have to emphasize the importance of doing and recognizing it now. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in Washington has just put out this report of EMS agenda for the next millennium. With healthcare reform taking a big part in changing our society, it's going to take more time for an injured individual to get to a hospital, because PPOs and HMOs are going to require the victim to go to their hospital. So it's going to be the important part by the bystander to maintain life until a paramedic gets there, because the commute time is going to be so much longer. When you consider 200,000 children die every year due to accidental injuries that could be saved, 50% could be saved.
50%.
With life-saving skills performed promptly, we can reduce our deficit immensely.
And you of course hope that this will have kind of a trickle-up effect, let's say, to the parents and them wanting to get involved as well.
Exactly. As I'm just going to quote here, as Dr. C. Coop had indicated when I first started this, if a disease were killing our children in the proportions that accidents are, people would be outraged and demand that this killer be stopped. And I plead to the people out there to support our efforts and get this program into the schools. We need your help, and we are right now offering a mouse shield for CPR mouse shield and a magnet that can put your emergency number on. Every community has their own emergency number. We are not all under 911. Some have 7 digits, some have various different numbers. So when the paramedic comes to the schools, teaches the children, they will tell that number that they can come home and tell the parent. And that anyhow, for $35 single membership, we will give one of these mouse shields and emergency magnet to the person to help our efforts.
Okay, Carol, what kinds of roadblocks are you running up against these days?
Well, I guess it was more difficult in the beginning than it is now, because we've been very active in soliciting that people's general ideas of liability is not an issue. That's one.
Meaning that people are afraid to get involved for fear that they might be accused of causing some problem or contributing to the death of.
But when you consider, if a person's heart stops and they stop breathing, they're considered dead. You can't make a person worse than dead. So you're better by doing something than nothing. This is your loved one that you're dealing with. And if you know what to do before a situation occurs, you're more apt to be able to promptly do it.
State Representative Dan Burke, again, Democrat of Chicago. How hopeful are you for the success of this House Bill number 208?
Well, as you've just heard, Carol, she's a very articulate spokesman for this particular issue, and certainly the dramatic circumstances that brought her to be the advocate for these serious issues is something that you can't ignore. It does get the attention of legislators. They are human beings. When Carol offered testimony this week in Springfield, certainly you could hear a pin drop in the committee hearing room. As far as what we see in terms of the success of the legislation, again, we're talking about the state of Illinois, and we're talking about a state that has great deficit in budget matters, and there are so many needs out there. It's up to us, myself being the sponsor and Carol being the articulate spokesman that she is, to persuade the members of, first of all, the Elementary and Secondary Education Committee to accommodate this very serious concern, to say that they believe that it is important to get early intervention, to reach the children in elementary schools, to tell them that they indeed can be the most important person in another one's life when they are suffering some medical emergency.
Do you sense much opposition, strong opposition now?
They certainly wouldn't articulate that. There are few that would ever suggest that this is not a good idea. But what they would insist is that they don't want to vote for additional tax. We have to persuade them, again, that it's not something that their constituency would be undertaking, that they would not be those that would be paying the tax, but visitors to our state. And Carol has had interaction with the rental companies to discover that they are not in opposition to the idea.
Okay, we're out of time. Carol Spizzirri, founder of Save a Life Foundation, also Illinois Democratic State Representative Dan Burke of Chicago, and they're pushing for passage of House Bill number 208. We thank you so much.
Thank you,
good luck
Linda.
to you.
God bless you.
I'm Linda Marshall. Stay with us. We'll have some more news and information on the Stock Market Observer.